There comes a point in every woman's life when she must wake up and recognize the truth, not just intellectually, but in her body, in her nervous system, in her energy field. The truth is simple but revolutionary. Your worth is not negotiable. It doesn't change with other people's opinions. It doesn't fluctuate based on what someone did to you or didn't do for you. It doesn't shift because it had a bad year, a broken relationship, or a setback that knocks the wind out of you. Worth is not earned, it is owned. A woman who sees herself as a queen isn't playing the same games as everyone else. She is not trying to prove her value. She's not waiting for someone to pick her, validate her, or apologize for underestimating her. Because deep inside, she knows her power doesn't come from outside in. It flows from inside out. And that shifts when women stop seeking external approval and start embodying her internal certainty, and that shift changes everything. But let's talk about how this happens neurologically, energetically, and spiritually. When you've been taught to base your worth on conditions, on what you look like, what you produce, how others treat you, you create a pattern in your brain, a survival pattern. You become hyper-attuned to rejection, criticism, and comparison. Your nervous system gets wired to respond to the outside world like it holds all the authority. You either scream or overextend to feel accepted. You chase validation because you have been tricked into the belief in your worth is a moving target. And when that becomes your default state, you live in reaction instead of creation. Now let's bring in something deeper. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what's happening and what you imagine with intensity. That's neuroplasticity. It means you can rewire your experience of self-worth by changing your internal state, by becoming the woman who no longer negotiates with self-doubt. Every time you visualize yourself walking into the room with grounded confidence, every time you choose not to respond to disrespects because you know it says more about them than you are carving a new path, a queen's path. When you embody self-worth, your energy changes before your circumstances do. You stop trying to chase closer from people who never even deserve your access to your heart. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop tapping your value to your productivity or perfection. You start sitting in silence, not because you are avoiding life, but because you are remembering who you are without the noise of expectations. This is not arrogance, this is coherence. Alignment. When a woman gets into coherence with her true self, she becomes magnetic, not because she's loud or flashy, because she's real, she's anchored, she's radiant from within, and people feel that. You can't fake this kind of energy. It comes from doing the inner work to dissolve the lies you were taught and replace them with truth. Not affirmation level truth, but identity level truth. You begin to realize that the people who must center you weren't defining your worth. They were reflecting their own limitations. And when you finally stop taking that personally, you rise, not because you are better than anyone, because you are done abandoning yourself. You are done editing your incense to fit into spaces too small for your expansion. You are done making excuses for people who don't know how to treat royalty. The world will tell you to earn your worth by hustling harder, pleasing everyone, shrinking into roles that keep others comfortable. But that's not sovereignty. Sovereignty says, I was born with worth. I do not need to hustle for it. I do not beg for crumbs when I was born to sit at the table I built. And if they don't see me, that's fine. I see me now. There's a shift that happens when you go from waiting to be chosen to choosing yourself. When you stop measuring your worth in lies, responses, or a relationship status. And you start embodying the truth that you are already enough. Not because you've done everything right, but because your existence is not a mistake. Your presence, your voice, your power is not up for debate. When you get into that place where your peace is not disrupted by temporary rejection, where your choice isn't conditional, where your clothes isn't dependent on someone noticing it, you step into the queen energy, not as a performance, as a reality. You stop performing for acceptance and start living from alignment. And alignment feels like coming home to yourself. It feels like walking into the room with your head high, even if no one claps, because you are not there for applause. You are there because you belong to the life you are living today. It's not simply the result of what has happened to you. It is a direct reflection of who you believe you are. Every reaction you take, every emotions you experience, and every decision you make is filtered through your sense of identity. If your identity rooted in fear, limitation, or unworthiness, then your energy will flow in the direction of survival, self-protection, and emotional contraction. But the moment you decide to shift your identity into no longer alive as the old self, but to embody the future self, you redirect the flow of your energy and with it your destiny. Most people try to change their lives without ever changing their identity. They want new results but keeping feeling and acting like the same person. That's why they find themselves stuck in patterns that feel familiar but unfulfilling. Because here's the truth, you can't create a new future while clinging to the emotions and beliefs of the past. You can't step into the life of the queen while still thinking like someone who doubts her throne even exists. Identity is more than a label or a title. It's the internal blueprinting your brains and body follow. It's the unconscious instructions you give yourself about what you are worthy of, what's possible for you, and what kind of energy you deserve to receive or release. If you spend years identifying as someone who settles, who struggles, who overlooked or underestimated, your nervous system gets conditioned to seek out experiences that confirm the identity. You begin to live in the feedback loop. Your identity informs your energy, and your energy shapes your reality. So how do you shift? It begins by asking a powerful question. Who am I becoming? Not just in theory, but emotionally, mentally, energetically. Can you see her? Can you feel her? The woman who moves with certainty, who speaks with clarity, who doesn't need to prove herself because she knows herself. That version of you already exists in the quantum field as a potential, a possibility, a pattern waiting to be activated. And the more you align with her in your thoughts, your habits, your feelings, the more energy flows in her direction. This is why living in alignment isn't about pretending or performing. It's about getting your internal world, your thoughts, your emotions, your energy to match the visions of who you are becoming. That is when identity begins to grow. That is when your brain starts to burn away the neural networks that kept you trapped in old story and build a new one that reflects the new reality. And the beautiful part is your brain is plastic. It can change. It wants to change, but it will only change when you stop identifying with the version of yourself that was built in survival and start identifying with the version of you that rooted in vision. Think about Ichi. A queen doesn't rise by accident. She rises by alignment. She becomes medics not because she chases anything, but because her identity is so clear, her energy becomes undeniable. She is not waiting for the life to hand her the ground. She is living such a way that the ground naturally finds her. That clarity of identity channels all of her energy into purpose, power, and presence. Energy is your currency. You invest it every time you could thought, feel emotions, and take an action. The question is easy. Are you investing in the identity you want to outgrow, or the one you want to step into? When your identity is aligned with the past, your energy recycles old emotions, shame, fear, insecurity, doubt. But when your identity is aligned with the future, your energy begins to expand into emotions like gratitude, certainty, peace, and inspiration. That emotional expansion is not random. It is energetic confirmation that you're becoming someone new. This is where real transformations happens. Not changing your outer environment first, but changing your internal stage. Because the truth is when you become someone different from the inside, your outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself. You don't wait for circumstances to change before you become the queen. You become the queen and circumstances start responding to the energy you've chosen to live in. Identity is decisions. It is not fixed and it's not final. Every day you are either reinforcing the old self or creating the new one. And your energy just follows that choice. If you keep waking up in the morning, rehearsing the same emotions, telling the same stories, playing the same mental loops, you are keeping your energy enslaved to versions of yourself that no longer serves you. But if you begin to wake up and rehearse a new emotional stage, a new belief system, a new story, you are telling your body and your brain, this is who I am now. That's the difference between wishing for change and embodying change. A woman who simply wishes for better remains stuck in her own identity. A woman who embodies her energy of her future self becomes it. She steps into the image of who she's becoming, and her thoughts start to match her vision, her feelings to reflect her purpose. Her actions start to support her new level, and the universe responds to that level of energetic clarity, not confusions. You are not here to live as watered down versions of yourself. You are here to enroll, to expand, to elevate your sense of self to match the life you were designed for. And that means becoming more interested in who you are becoming than who you've been. Let others define you by your past if they want to. You are defining yourself by your potential. You are no longer subscribing to the identity you inherited from trauma, insecurity, or broken relationships. You are creating a new one, from choice, from reasons, from power. And as that identity grows, your energy will flow exactly where it needs to go. There's a moment in a woman's life when she realizes she has been spending more energy reacting to life than creating it. She's been shaped by circumstances, molded by expectations, and often emotionally hijacked by what others did or didn't do. And at some point, she sees the pattern clearly, how her nervous system has been hardwired to survive, not thrive. That realization is a doorway to transformations because you were born to merely respond to life. You were born to design it. When you live in reactions, you give your power away. You allow external conditions to dictate your internal stage. If someone loves you, you feel worthy. If someone ignores you, you spiral. If an opportunity shows up, you feel excited. If it disappears, you question your value. In this stage, your emotions become conditional, unstable, and heavily dependent on your environment. You're no longer sovereign. You're emotionally enslaved to people, events, and outcomes beyond your control. This reactive mode is survival-based. It's how the body and brain were designed to function under threat. When you perceive danger, whether physical or emotional, your system goes into fight, flight, or freeze. Cortisol floods your bloodstream, your awareness narrows, your decisions become abusive and short-term. You start looking for safety, validation, or control in all the wrong places. And without realizing this, you are living in the loop, constantly responding to the past while trying to create a new future. That doesn't work. Creation, on the other hand, requires presence. It requires you to step out of the emotional habits of your past and into the frequency of your vision. When you start creating your life instead of reacting to it, everything changes. Not because the outer world becomes easier, but because you are no longer moved by everything that used to shake you. You start choosing to respond instead of being ruled by it. You start initiating change rather than waiting for it. And most importantly, you stop outsourcing your emotional state to people who have no business holding it. Let's talk about the neuroscience behind this. Your brain is a record of the past. It stores memories, associations, and emotional patterns that influence your present reality. When you live reactively, you are essentially allowing those old programs to run the show. You wake up, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and act the same way as the day before. That loop reinforces the identity you are trying to evolve out of. But when you become conscious of this loop, you gain the power to interrupt it. Conscious creation begins when you decide to break the cycle. When you wake up in the morning, and instead of checking your phone and download everyone else's energy, you take in with your future self. You align with the woman you are becoming, not the one you've been conditioned to be. You create an emotional state from within. Peace, clarity, certainty, gratitude before anything external gives you a reason to feel it. That's the beginning of mastery. That's when you start influencing the feel instead of reacting to it. The queen doesn't react to chaos. She brings order to it. She doesn't chase validation. She validates herself. She doesn't need to control people. She controls her energy. And this isn't the performance. This is regulation. This is healing. This is alignment. Because when you regulate your nervous system and choose elevated emotions regardless of your circumstances, you are sending a powerful message to the universe saying, I'm ready to create from the inside out. Now, it doesn't mean you ignore the emotions or bypass your pain. It means you stop letting them drive a car. You feel what you need to feel, but you don't set up camps in those states. You process them, release them, and return to your power. Because your future won't build from resentments, bitterness, or despair. It will build from reasons, intentions, and emotional coherence. Every time you pause before reacting, before sending the anti text, before shrinking in response to rejection, before repeating the same defensive patterns, you give yourself the opportunity to choose a new timeline. That moment you pause in secret, because in that space between stimulus and response, you get to decide who you are becoming. Creation requires repetitions. You can't just think a new thought once and feel a new emotion for a few minutes and expect your life to change. You must rehearse the future until your body believes it, until your nervous system is no longer addicted to stress and your identity no longer clings to struggle. That's when you become a creator in the true sense. You're no longer waiting for the perfect moment. You are becoming it. The truth that most people don't want to create because creation demands responsibility. It asks you to stop blaming the world for how you feel. It asks you to stop living like the victim of your past and start showing up like an architect of your future. That's not easy, but it's necessary. Because until you accept that you are the source of your energy, your mindset, and your reality, you'll always be waiting for someone else to save you. A woman who decides to stop reacting and start creating is dangerous in the best way. She no longer settles. She no longer explains herself. She no longer plays more to fit into stories. She's outgrows. She becomes intentional with her words, her boundaries, her energy, and she understands that her attention is most sacred currency. What she focuses on grows. What she emotionally rehearses becomes her personality, and what she consistently creates in her inner world must eventually manifest in the outer world. You don't create by force, you create by frequency. And your frequency is set by emotional states you consistently occupy. If you live in fear, you create more fear. If you live in worthiness, you will create more abundance. If you live in alignment, you draw in people, opportunities, and experiences that match your vibration. Boundaries are not walls, they are standards. They are declarations. They are declarations to the world about what you allow into your space, your energy, your mind, and your heart. A queen doesn't beg for respect, nor does she argue for her value. She simply embodies it, and that embodiment shows up in how she sets boundaries, not from a place of fear, but from a place of deep self-regard. Boundaries are not about keeping others out. There's a common misunderstanding that boundaries are about punishment or withdrawal. But the truth is, boundaries are about clarity. They define the line between what is acceptable and what is not. When a woman knows her worth, she doesn't fear being misunderstood for having standards. She's not interested in explaining why she protects her peace. Her alignment is more important than popularity. And it's not because she thinks she's better than anyone. It's because she finally understands she's not available for anything that costs her soul. When your boundaries are weak or non-existent, your energy leaks. You find yourself drained by conversations that go nowhere, people who repeatedly cross the line, and situations that demand more of you than what you have to give. Without strong boundaries, your nervous system stays in the state that low-level stress. You're constantly on edge, overextending, people-pleasing, and self-shifting just to keep the peace. But there isn't peace. That self-abandonment disguises harmony. Energetically, every time you say yes to something that dishonors your intuitions, you reinforce a belief that your voice doesn't matter. Every time you tolerate disrespect, even in subtle forms, passive-aggressive comments, inconsistency, emotional manipulation, you signal to your subconscious mind that your standards are negotiable. And once your subconscious starts to accept that, you start shrinking. You start making excuses for behavior you would have once rejected. You start adapting to dysfunction, normalizing chaos, and silencing your own discomforts just to avoid confrontation. But the woman who are becoming, the queen version of you, no longer finds safety in silence. She finds it in self-respect. She knows that boundaries are not ultimatums. They are invitations. They say, this is the level of energy I operate in. If you want to be in my life, rise to meet it. They are not demands. They are declarations of identity, and identity drives behavior. When you commit to your boundaries, you are no longer swayed by guilt, manipulation, or fear of being alone. You are led by principle, not pressure. That changes how you move. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop over-functioning in relationships that survive on your exhaustion. You stop negotiating with your own intuitions just to keep a connection alive, because a queen doesn't need to be in constant crisis to feel important. She thrives in clarity, stability, and emotional sovereignty. And it's important to understand that setting boundaries isn't about anger or punishment. It's about protection of your energy. It's about recognizing that your time, your space, and your presence is sacred. Not everyone is entitled to it. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table, and not because you are cold, arrogant, or unkind, but because you are clear. That clarity over time becomes magnetic. You'll find when you honor your boundaries, the people who are mean to you will respect them, not resist them. Neurologically, this process recognizes your brain. When you begin to unhold boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable, your brain starts to associate self-respect with safety rather than danger. For many women, confrontations feels threatening because it's their past. Standing up for themselves results in rejection, backlash, or emotional withdrawal. But every time you hold the line, every time you walk away from what dishonors you, every time you choose silence over drama, you rewire your nervous system to feel safe in self-ownership. This is a powerful shift because once you train your body to feel secure and honoring your standards, your relationships change, your environment changes, your decisions become more light. You no longer seek permission to express your needs. You simply express them, and if someone can't meet you there, you don't lower the bar. You understand they are not meant to work beside you. The kind of discernment isn't cruelty, it's clarity, and clarity protects your purpose. Boundaries also teach the world how to treat you. If you repeatedly tolerate behavior that is beneath your standards, you condition others to believe that your energy is available for negotiation. But when you consistently embody your standards, when your words, actions, and choices reflect your self-worth, you create a new rhythm. People rise to meet you or they fall away. Either outcome serves you because you are no longer building your life around the fear of loss. You're building it around the truth of who you are. There's nothing more powerful than a woman who chooses herself, not from ego, but from alignment. She no longer let fear dictate her presence. She no longer allows access to those who exploit her kindness. She becomes deeply selective, not because she's close up, but because she finally understands that her energy is currency. She spends it wisely. She gives it generously, but not recklessly. And the more she lives from that space, the more her outer world begins to reflect her internal standards she committed to. Every boundary you set is a message to the universe that you are ready to be surrounded by people, opportunity, and environments that match your frequency. Not because you're forcing anything, but because you have stopped entertaining anything that pulls you out of alignment. Boundaries are not barriers to love or connections. They are the gateway to authentic relationship. Because when you are rooted in your truth, only those who respect that truth can truly stay. Your external life is a mirror of your internal stage, not just your thoughts or beliefs, but the quality of regulation in your nervous system, the stability of your emotions, and the patterns you've practiced in response to stress, certainty, and desire. If your inner world is chaotic, your outer world cannot help but reflect that chaos. If your emotions are dysregulated, your relationship will echo that instability. Your reality is not reaching to your wishes. It is responding to your regulation. Emotional regulation is not about suppressing your feeling or pretending to be calm when you are not. It's about building the capability to feel without losing yourself. It's about staying rooted when things around you shake. Most women have been conditioned to either repress their emotions to maintain control or explode with emotions when they've been pushed too far. Neither is sustainable. Neither leads to growth. True regulation means you can feel deeply without being ruled by the feeling. When you are regulated, you don't overreact to small triggers. You don't spiral into anxiety and every unknown. You don't make impulsive decisions from emotional overwhelm. You pause, you breathe, you observe, you choose. And in that space between stimulus and response, you create power. Because power is not loud, power is calm, power is grounded, power is self-comment. When people master her nervous system, she becomes unshakable. Not because life becomes easier, but because she becomes wiser in how to respond to it. Your nervous system holds memory. It holds the echoes of every time you felt unsafe, unseen, unloved. And unless you interrupt the pattern, it will keep replaying those memories every time something resembles the past. That's why some conversations feel heavier than they need to. That's why healing is not just intellectual, it's physiological. You must teach your body that it's safe to respond differently. Regulations allows you to stay in alignment with your values even when your emotions want to hijack you. It allows you to lead with clarity when fear wants to rush you. It allows you to make decisions from reason instead of desperation. And that stability becomes magnetic. People can feel when your energy is stable. They trust it. They draw to it because most of the world lives in the state of chronic reactivity. When you are different, when you are calm in your truth, centered in your body, you stand up without trying. This is where the real transformation begins. Because once you regulate your emotions, you start regulating your choices. And when your choices are no longer made from trauma or urgency, they become intentional. You begin saying no to things that drain you. You stop chasing people who confuse you. You stop abandoning yourself just to be liked. That emotional integrity begins to shape your environment. You are living your reality selves, not because controlling everything, but because you are controlling yourself. You also start to experience more flow. When you regulate this, your body is not stuck in survival response. You have more access to creativity, intuitions, and presence. You can hold discomfort without running from it. You can listen without needing to defend. You can express your truth without collapsing into shame. That's when your energy begins to move in directions of growth, not protection. And your environment responds. Your opportunity becomes clearer. Relationships become more light, and challenges become invitations rather than threats. Regulation is a form of devotion. It's how you protect the woman who is becoming. It's how you stop repeating the same cycles that kept you small. It's how you create a life feels safe from the inside out. And no one can do this for you. No one can regulate your system but you. It's a practice, a choice, a daily return to center. Some days will be easy, others will stretch you. But every time you come back to your breath, your body, your truth, you reclaim the authority you once gave away. Your reality is already listening to your regulation. It's already mirroring your baseline. If you want peace on the outside, you must create peace on the inside. If you want respect from others, you must show that you respect yourself through the way you manage your energy. If you want emotional maturity in your relationship, you must bring emotional maturity in your own internal dialogue. Nothing outside you can stabilize when you refuse to stabilize within. A regulated woman is not one who never feels pains. She is one who knows how to meet it, who knows how to sit with it without letting it define her, who knows how to ride the wave without being pulled under. That steadiness is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength because it means your past no longer runs your presence. Your emotions no longer control your decisions, and your energy is no longer fragmented by unhealed stories. Instead, it's whole, focused, intentional. And reality has no choice but to match that frequency. You are not here to live on autopilot. You are not here to scream to fit into broken system or outdated roles. You are here to remember who you are. A queen is not a title. It's a frequency. It's a level of self-awareness and energetic mastery that cannot be faked or fabricated. It must be embodied. You step into your frequency. You step into your quantum when you stop reacting and start creating. When you honor your boundaries, not from fear, but from power. When you decide that your peace, your visions, and your alignment matter more than temporary comfort. You no longer seek validation from those who don't see your worth. You no longer negotiate with your own intuitions. You no longer wait for permissions. You live fully, speak truthfully, and love unapologetically. And as you regulate your emotions, as you heal your nervous system, as you take responsibility to the energy you bring into every space, you will notice the world bending to meet your new standard. Not because the world changed, but because you did. This is not performance. This is not about pretending to be something you are not. It's about stripping away every layer of conditioning that show you were less than too much or not enough. It's about reclaiming the truth that always been inside you. You are a queen. Stop acting like one.